Today's show is sponsored by Calamos. All right, let's talk about what Calamos is doing because this is actually pretty wild. We've talked about several of their ETFs on our podcasts, but they just did something incredible with their new auto-callable income ETF, ticker CAIE. This thing seeks high tax-efficient monthly income, 14.47% last month, a majority of which is estimated to be treated as return of capital, game-changing income and tax treatment. Auto-callables are a $100 billion market that banks have been selling to wealthy clients for years. Calamos just hit the easy button for everyone and democratized the whole thing in an ETF wrapper. CAIE just passed $300 million in assets and is climbing fast. While everyone's chasing yield with covered calls, Calamos opened up an entirely different playbook. Check out CAIE at calamos.com. Your income-hungry clients will thank you. To the haters, we will be here forever. Do you understand that? Forever!
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Josh Brown, Michael Batnick, and your very special guest for the night, Jim Cramer!
All right, so that was the warm-up.
Let's go! Woo!
All right. After you. You're in the middle. You're in the middle. Michael Batnick, ladies and gentlemen. All right. You guys, we are on a Friday night in South Street Seaport. We are here to talk about stocks. Give yourselves a round of applause. Let's hear it.
This is a vacation for me. This is what I want to do on my vacation. I just want to talk stocks.
I have to tell you, this is, without a doubt, the number one career highlight for me. We're about to spend 6.5 hours talking with Jim Cramer. I didn't even write an introduction because I don't think you need it anywhere in the world. In my estimation, you are, when people think of the stock market, if they could think of one person, it might be Warren Buffett, but also it might be you, and that's it. I don't know of a third person that the global population associates more
I want them to know
with the stock
you
market.
because I have felt from the day I met you that you are the democratizer and you understand how to demystify, which I love. I'll tell you a story. A buddy of mine, Sembalist, you saw him on this thing. I go
I'm just
fishing
going to
with
put
him.
the mic down, guys.
Yeah, I go fishing with Sembalist. He's terrific. Went off in Panama, right where they had Survivor. One year they had Survivor there. And when he did this really unbelievable piece, and it was a piece about how big AI is going to be, whatever. I said, you got to come on my show. And he goes, oh, what, you're 8 minutes? I said, well, I'll give you 10 minutes. He goes, no, I go with Josh. I said, well, Josh Brown. Yeah. He said, he'll give me as much time as I want. And I don't need to be on TV anymore.
Oh, man.
Think about that. Number one analyst in the country. He doesn't want to be on TV with the 8 minutes, not really able to get the job done. He wants to come see you because he said, I can get my points across in an atmosphere where people care and are fired up. And I know his family and everything. And it is just great testament that he said, I have to go where people care. And that's what you've done.
I really appreciate that, Jim. And to all the fans of the compound, you guys are the reason that we do it. And I just want to express how much it means to me to see you guys here tonight. One more round of applause for yourselves.
And also,
And furthermore...
Yeah, and that being said, before I turn the Nick game on, because I'm definitely not going to get a word in, with these two world-class maniacs for the rest of the show, I just want to say it is such, to echo what Josh said, what an honor. All-time highs for the S&P 500 and every other index. And if this is the top, there's nobody I'd rather celebrate it with than you.
Thank you. Yeah, right. I mean, when we reached 47,000 and closed, and the 34th time, my producer Heather Gaines is here. I said, we got to work all that stuff in. All the other shows are working that stuff in. Let's work that stuff in.
Yeah.
You know,
So, Jim, outside of, and maybe even not outside of Jack Bogle, you really have done as much for the individual investor, for the people in the audience, for the 300 million people around this country, or the 150 that own stocks, whatever it is. Thank you for everything.
Well, I'm honored that you say that. I mean, it's kind of what I did want to accomplish. It's loftier than I think I am, and I'm really honored that you say that. if I could get through. I knew Jack, and I had this debate about Jack and index fund performance. And I showed him my performance. I said, listen, I've been up 24% after all fees versus 8% for the S&P. And he goes, okay, so let me ask you something. When you have a good year, how much money do you take in? I said, none. He said, well, that's why you beat the market. Everybody who has a good year, they go marketing. And how many times have you been open? I said, I've been open like 3 times in the last 10 years. And he said, well, look, you're not a marketer. And I said, I tell you the truth, I hate the marketing. And he said, well, if you marketed, you would have so much money come in at once, you'd be ruined because you had that hot year. And I've always respected that. Jack was a guy who said, yes, you can beat the market. You never want to say it out loud. You can beat the market, but under circumstances that aren't what the masters of the universe want.
Because if you have the best year in your career, that's also going to be the high point of your money raising.
Yeah.
And then you're forced to buy things that you wouldn't otherwise buy, probably toward the top, if not at the top.
He would say, he said to me, how many great ideas do you have a year? I mean, real ideas that you want to own, say 4 or 5% of the company. I said, those probably come 3 or 4 times a year. He goes, you'd have to own 10% of 10 kinds of companies like that. And I was really mindful because it means that there are great, and think about how great Will Danoff is at Contra, that he's able to handle it. Yeah. But most of the guys are not able to handle the big rush and the money. And so I knew I had to get out. We can talk a lot about the business, but the business was, Jack was very humbling because he did make it clear that most people should be in an index fund. I believe that you can have both. I think that this only index fund at all time thing is a big mistake because there's a lot of people who have eyes and ears and see things and don't take advantage of their own knowledge because they're told they're too stupid. And then when I say that, I mean it. They're told, listen, you don't know, we do, give it to us. And I think everybody has eyes and ears, they can do things, but they're talked out of believing that they could have owned Facebook, now Meta. They just got talked out of it.
And most people in 2012, when Meta came public, when Facebook came public, they understood this is going to be a big company.
Absolutely.
They could have bought it, but they said, it's in the index, I don't need to.
Exactly.
And then it 10X's.
Hang on, revisionist history. I remember you on TV, both of you actually.
Yeah.
What a shit show that IPO was.
It was.
Yeah, 42, 43. Happened to be the day. Happened to be I was doing this junior prom after party for my daughter, and I had just laid down red carpet and it rained. And she said, "Dad," it was like the night before. She said, "Dad, I want a slate patio." I said, "Well, what do you like?" I got guys. I said, "Well, it have to be at night because it's against the zoning." Yeah. But we got it down, and just in time, it opened. And Melissa Lee asked me, "What do you think?" I said, 47, like 40. No,
but
then it got clobbered. Yeah. If you remember, because he didn't have the. He didn't
mobile.
have the handheld. Didn't have the mobile.
How do they monetize
and then
mobile?
It goes 17, 18, and then bingo. I became friends with him. It's kind of a weird thing.
With Mark?
Yeah, he's a different kind of guy, but he's not a bad guy.
Yeah.
He's not a bad guy. Hey, he liked my book.
I don't think he's a bad guy, but he does live like a supervillain. He lives in a volcano in Hawaii. And he is surrounded by his own food source.
Sharks with laser
I took a
paddles.
chopper to look at his place.
Okay.
Because my friend
So
Rick
he's
Hill
living like a
from Lamb
literal
Research.
supervillain.
No, it is
Bond villain.
And he's like, someone told one of my lawyers was saying, I like MMA, and I said to my wife, "What's MMA?" And she goes, "That's that stuff that Zuckerberg does." I said, "You like this stuff?" He goes, "Yeah, that's what MMA is." He's a little crazy, but I was seeing him on Rogan, and I think that he's off the reservation right now, but I like the product.
So we're going to get to the modern market, but in order for this discussion to achieve what I wanted to achieve for all of you, and for those listening from home or from their cars, I want to go back because I think people need to understand, if you're a fan of the compound, you're a fan of what Michael and I do, how influential you've been on us, but also on, I think, the American investing public. 25 years ago, literally to the month, I told my wife, Shari, a.k.a. Sprinkles, who's here tonight, I said, I'm going to the YMCA, the 92nd Street Y, and I'm going to spend the whole day there. I don't know how long this event's going to be, but that's what I'm doing today. She says, what are you doing? I said, Jim Cramer is going to give a talk at the Y, and I have a copy of Confessions of a Street Addict in my hand, and I'm going to go. And at this point, I think I'm 23 years old. I'm a retail stockbroker. literally nobody. Still nobody, but
Stop it with that.
much more nobody back then. So I go and I sit in the audience, and it's literally 6 months after the market topped, and we don't know.
Right.
But so it's tickers, and it's a little mini lightning round. This is 5 years before you have your own show on CNBC. You're letting like random people ask you tickers, and I've never seen anything like it. You did an hour on every stock under the sun, and you actually had things to say about every company. And I sat in the back of the room, and I waited for my chance to get you to sign my book, and you did. But I remember saying to myself, "Oh my God, this is like the greatest communicator about stocks I've ever seen in my entire life." It's literally 25 years to the month of where we're sitting right now.
That's funny.
Did you have any idea in those days that your career would take you from hedge fund manager to columnist at thestreet.com to where you are now?
No, I mean, like that.
Was this a blueprint, or
it's
it's just
very interesting you say that. I mean, remember what you said about how you took all that money in at once?
Yeah.
Right? That would be the top. I mean, that was my best book. And it was the only one that's really personal. I sold 2 million copies of it. It was a big book. I mean, that's a huge amount now.
yeah?
And the book was it was actually very loved by the critics. I couldn't believe I didn't care about the critics, but my lawyer didn't want me to write it. My then wife didn't want me to write it. My kids didn't want me to write it. Everyone was afraid that I would tell everything, and then I did tell everything. And it was very embarrassing for me. Remember all this horrible stuff I said about myself?
Well, there was stuff about the SEC calling you,
Oh, yeah.
and you're
And I got drunk.
you're drinking, you're laying on the linoleum floor.
Sleeping
I
in
had
your car.
Sleeping in the car.
I was saying on my 40th birthday, the SEC called me. I had written an article. We were talking earlier about what you write an article now, and no one really cares about it. But I moved a bunch of stocks in a piece I wrote for Smart Money, which I had helped start a few years earlier. And it was the day that there was an article about me. It was a big party for all my friends that my wife was throwing. Wife, Jesus. And the SEC was looking into my manipulation of 4 stocks. And what had happened is that, and this is how life really, now I can talk about it because I don't give a damn. But there were 4 stocks that I wrote about that I said were orphan stocks. And I thought they'd be good stocks. And I said, one of them's probably going to be a bomb, 2 are going to be okay, and 1's going to be a killer. That's pretty much the ratio on. And what happened is they left the disclosure box off that I owned them. And the SEC went after me with everything they had, and the journal did not reveal that they dropped the box. So then we had to go and say, listen, we're going to sue you guys. And there happened to be a memo that said, do you think Cramer would mind if we dropped the 4 stocks? We don't have enough room for the article and the disclosure box. And, it was hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and very embarrassing for me. And at the end, my lawyer was saying, listen, Jim Cramer wants to be the CEO of Dow Jones. He can be it because we have the memo. And they apologized, and they did an investigation about how they could have been so wrong. But all these things happened, and I wrote about them, and it was incredibly
That's what's crazy.
stuff.
You put that in a book. At that time, people writing investment books were writing them to burnish their careers. They were writing them to say, look how smart I am. And your book, first of all, you call yourself a street addict.
Right. Well,
in the title.
Right. That was supposed to be like Confessions of, this is the book that Andrew just wrote.
Yeah.
But, about Jesse Livermore.
Yeah.
But yeah, Confession, because I was a street addict. I was possessed by the ticker, just like
But
that guy.
But I think that was like paradigm shifting, and I think that the next wave of commentary that came after that, people were much more comfortable being themselves, being authentic. Yes, I'm a market participant. No, I'm not a genius. Yes, I make mistakes. I think that you were the first person to do that in not just book form, but on thestreet.com and eventually on television.
Admit it.
And we take it for granted now that people are able to be themselves. Prior to that, everybody was very stage managed.
What did you say? Like, I watch you when you're on with Scott. You do your own stuff and like do this. And this is like fantasy land back then. I mean, it'd be like, what, are you kidding me? And yet this is how it really should be. I mean, it was about rich people making money and then poor people not making money. And that's all changed, and I like that. But I knew I had to get out of the hedge fund business, and it's in the book where there's this guy Berkowitz that I had hired. There's a guy, really good manager by the name of Dan Benton, said, listen, I got this kid. You ought to hire him as your assistant. And I had become progressively really possessed with beating the numbers. But I had to do $430,000 a day by the time I'd done just to be able to maintain my average. And I was becoming meaner and more horrible and wrecking everybody's life. I was trading when our kid was born and bought a lot of Alcoa, killed it on the Alcoa trade. Right when we were coming out there, it was like a real accomplishment, but that was the wrong way to look at it. And at the end, right at the end, his daughter was probably 9, and she was in a play. And it was the same day that Intel reported. And I said to him when he was leaving, I said, wait a second, let me tell you something.
What play is it?
I said, let me tell you something. Your kid's going to be in 1 million plays, but Intel only reports 4 times a year. And he said, can you listen to yourself? I said, yeah, Intel only reports 4 times. Go to your play. Go see it. Yeah, I bet she'll be terrific. Let me do the damn Intel, okay? I'll get it right. And that's not good.
There are stories of you've told these stories of breaking keyboards and throwing.
I had an anger problem.
Okay, so I don't think it's crazy to say that you made the right decision. I think for most people, they would look at the level of success that you've achieved as a market commentator, a teacher, a mentor to investors. You've gone way beyond what you could have accomplished had you continued running a hedge fund.
I think about a lot. I was at this Goldman dinner. I started Goldman, sales and trading, then went towards sales and toward wealth management, they call it. And I was with a bunch of guys from my class, and they're all doing really well. And their life is based on how well they did on money, and that's okay because that's the thing. And they all liked the fact that I did not. Everybody wants to have money, and there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. But they loved the fact that I went for something else. Because they said, that was right for you. We always knew that was right for you. And you knew it was right for us. And it was right in the sense that I wanted to do something really different. And I started the street because what had happened, I had gone to Dow Jones to say, listen, there's going to be this thing. And we can do Wall Street Journal like all day.
You showed them the internet.
Yeah. And they said, well, no, but then what would happen? People wouldn't want to read it in the morning. I said, well, no, but it's history. That's history. What's going to happen is you're going to read all that. We're updated a million times. Well, we can't update. We can't keep throwing the paper on people's lawns and stuff. I said, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to update it on our PCs. Well, but no, I mean, who'll read that? And who will pay for that? And I said, well, that's another story. But then they got in this fight that I just mentioned. I said, listen, I'm keeping it myself. They offered me $400,000 for my idea, and I said, shove it. I don't want your $400,000. I wanted to try it.
Jim, when you started your road down the media, which is obviously a complete 180 from running a hedge fund,
sure,
did you think that you were going to eventually come back to running money?
No, because I was 225 pounds. I had really bad blood pressure. My life was, I was possessed, and I wanted to live. And that's what I felt. It was about living or dying. Because that's, I'm 160 pounds, and my blood pressure's okay. There was just no way to make it. I knew that I would not make it.
Where do you think that pressure on a day-to-day basis came from? Is it just your internal, your maniac?
It's funny. I know that I love my late dad, and he was sensational, but he always thought David was smarter than I am, and Barbara was really smart, and Laura was so incredible, and she's going to here, and Shelley's smart. Hey, Shelley, I bet you there was always somebody who was smarter. And it just broke my heart that there was always somebody who was more accomplished and better. And my dad was a salesman. He sold boxes and bags to retailers, and he sold doggy bags in Philadelphia to restaurants in the later part of his career. But I just never, ever felt secure.
You felt that you had to prove. You felt you had to prove yourself to yourself, or to him, or some combination.
I always wanted his approval. And let me tell you when I got his approval. I was desperate. My whole life I've been desperate to try to get Pop's approval. But I had this buddy, Tom McGrath. He's a great friend of mine. He was in my hedge fund. He goes, look, we were Eagle season tickets are together. He goes, look, the Philadelphia Inquirer is going out of business. I got a guy in the courtroom. We can get that box. I said, where's the box? Because it's on the 50. I said, oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. You got to get
box
it. In the 50-yard line. I said, no. And he says, why? Why do you have to? I said, you'll see. You'll see. And I just be there on opening day. So we go on first day. And my father says, Jimmy, I think you've done okay. But I'm on the 47. I said, Pop, move 5 feet over. You're on the 50. Unbelievable. He said, hey, Jimmy, you're okay. Jimmy's
so
okay.
I very much relate to that. And it never goes.
Tell me.
It never goes.
Don't drop it like that. I got to know because it's so hard.
Okay. It never. So it never goes away. Would be my comment. even after you get to a place where obviously you can pay your bills, obviously your family's doing well, obviously like you can drive whatever car you want, you can pick your own hours, you can sign contracts and decide how hard you want to work, who you want to work with. Even when you get to that point, that like need for other people to see you as somebody who's accomplished something, it never goes away.
I know.
At least from my perspective.
Well, look, I think that you take a guy like Semblus who was here.
Yeah.
Like Semblus is, I don't know who, is that, did anyone
They know,
Michael
they know,
Semblus
they know,
fans
yeah.
in the
Yeah,
audience?
Of course,
Yes?
Of course.
All right.
Legend.
Like, like Semblus, so, like, I first meet Semblus, and I say, damn, this guy's like the smartest guy ever. And then he turns out to be the smartest guy ever.
He might be.
And I'm incredibly intimidated by him, but I realize, wait a second, he likes to fish, I like to fish, we go fishing. And the next thing I know, it's like, he's a regular guy. He's worried that people don't like his stuff. That's what he's worried about.
Right.
He said, "Do you like that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "No, tell me.
The
Do you
head
really
of
like it?"
research at JP Morgan is worried no one's reading what he...
He is. He's
Right.
like, "Hey, what'd you think?" Like the piece will come out like at 7:59 on Monday, and he'll say, "What'd you think?" And I'm like, I said, "I haven't had a chance to read it yet." Said, "Are you going to read it before you go on?" Of course I'm going to read it. Are you going to mention it? Well, maybe I'll mention it. I don't know if I like it. If I like it, I'll mention it. If I don't like it, I'll go, "Oh no, even if you don't like it, I think can you mention it?" I said, "Michael, relax. You're like a brilliant guy." No. He's worried that I won't like it.
I think that's universal. I want to go to the .com era because of all the comparisons that are being made from then to today.
Sure.
I started reading you. This is a true story. I started reading you in 1997.
Jesus, that would have been my
So you're
6 months in.
You're doing TheStreet.com. You're also doing a column for New York Magazine. And my first job at a brokerage firm in Garden City, Long Island, a firm called Lou Lieberbaum. It's a true story. Before I had my Series 7, I can't talk on the phone to clients. I can cold call. That's it. But my other job is take, there's one computer in the office. It's in the computer room. This is true. Print out Jim Cramer's column in the morning. It was you, maybe Herb Greenberg.
Yeah, sure.
I forget who, there was the third guy,
Adam
Dan.
Wyszynski we had.
Okay. So print these columns out and make sure all the brokers get a copy on their desk. And I did that for 6 months. Every single day, and they ate it up. They would grab it out of my hand as I'm walking through the aisle. Yes,
dynamite.
100%. So I remember that era is the first time I started reading your stuff. I think it's the first time you're writing, and I was curious if you think the comparisons between that era and now are apropos, or if they're different. If these periods are different, how are they different?
Well, I think that they're very different, and one of the reasons I think they're very different until OpenAI, which is something we can talk about, is that these companies are remarkable. They're like nation-state companies. They're tremendous balance sheets led by really great people. Whereas like when you were back in those days, you'll see a guy from InfoSpace, and he'll come in to see you and he'll say, "Hey, listen, Street.com kind of struggling. I'm kind of struggling, but I've said that I'm going to be the first $1 trillion company. So what I could do is here's $10 million," and he writes it as a check, and I'll give it to you. And then what you do is you buy $10 million worth of ads in mine. It's called a Lazy Susan deal, and we all work out. I said, that sounds illegal. And he goes, "Well, no, you understand. No one's in the room." And I said, "Well, that doesn't make it less."
So that's double click and like all those early internet advertising business models.
And that's the way it was back then. It was not Wild West so much as like the authorities are stupid. We can do what we want. There's Jack Grubman. I met Jack Grubman through my ex-wife when he was just beginning at Payne Weber, and he was doing stuff I couldn't believe to build up his name. It was all insider trading stuff, but it was not illegal. I mean, it's like it's hard to describe what illegal and illegal meant. But put it this way, the companies are so well capitalized that are involved now, again, with the exception of OpenAI. I want to talk about that. But the businesses are real. And by that point, almost all those businesses were about lighting fiber and having product to be sold over the fiber. What we didn't realize is kind of like Walmart. Walmart destroyed all retail. Amazon destroyed all of online retail. And you just didn't think that either could happen. I mean, look, if you're Target right now and the new guy comes in, Believe me, he's thinking about whether his company can make it. Kohl's, can they make it? They probably can't make it because Walmart's going to wipe everybody out except for Costco. What it was like then was we had all these different retailers, different companies, and we somehow thought they were all going to work. And we had all these companies that were light and fiber, and we somehow thought that they were going to work. And I mentioned Jack Grubman because Jack Grubman was WorldCom. He was the banker behind WorldCom. He was the banker behind all these. And you always had this next deal, next deal, next deal. And it was always the same, which is that you could jam, you could get the E-Trade guys, the retail people to pay up. You could then offer them stock. You go short, and then you hold it till it goes to 2. It was all crooked.
You had
It was crooked.
You had a series of columns back then, probably 98 or 99. You had these 2 fictional characters who you pretended, Buzz and Batch. So Buzz and Batch were 2 guys who were, I guess, institutional sales traders.
Yes.
And they would call you up, and you would write these dialogues that never took place, but probably took place, right?
Right.
An amalgamation of all the people calling you with stock ideas.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised that was a long time ago.
I go deep.
Well,
So,
that's
so would Buzz and Batch today would be trading Oklo, and
Oh my God.
they would
So
be
this
involved
is-
in all these stuff.
Yeah, so this is the problem. I mean, look, and I know, yesterday I get up, and I get up real early, and it's like, son of a bitch, or someone from the administration has told someone that that they're going to put $10 million in each of the big 4 quantum companies. $10
Right.
million, that ought to make a difference, right? These are all like $10 billion companies and $20 billion companies. And I've been trying to tell people, listen, trim. I don't want you to blow it out. I just don't want you to lose it all. Trim. I never say, get out now. I did that once October 8th, and that's in 1998 in the book, 1206. And what happened, it's really interesting, was that I said, oh, shit, everyone's going to hate me because I said be trimming the quantums, and suddenly going to take the quantums up again. Now, I've met with 2 of the 4 quantums. The other 2 don't want to come on the show. And not that it doesn't mean anything.
D-Wave.
Yeah.
Let's
and
tell
then
the people what stock's
IONQ,
talking about.
IONQ.
What's rigatoni? We like that one.
Yeah, never, like someone sold $2.5 million worth of rigatoni last week, and I'm like, look at it, and like, the stock was like a penny stock a year ago.
Michael said it's ZD now. He's downgraded.
I had Carbone. They work for Carbone. But you look at this stuff and you just say, okay, I'm not going to get people out, but I got to get people to take some off. So you look at Oklo, okay, and that's good. Oklo. Did you see the guy who said, "Was it Oklo?" He asked the analyst, "Is it Oklo or Oklo?" The analyst, and the analyst said, "Doesn't matter." That's very 98. That's very 99.
It goes up. It doesn't matter what
Yeah,
it's
it goes
called.
up. That's
So
Batch.
Buzz and Batch would
That's
be
what they
in the
would do.
quantum stocks.
Right, they would be doing the Oklo, and they'd be doing the IONQs, and they would be doing the Bloom Energy, which has never made any money, but suddenly does have a real product. And you go to like a Michael Intrader at Core Weave, who's actually a Jersey guy, and he's really easy to talk to. And you say, how about the Bloom? And he goes, I don't know. I mean, it doesn't scale. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't scale. It's got a couple of things that are making so a couple of data centers have backup power. But what happens is then you have Tesla. And Tesla makes you look like an idiot. Because Tesla's like, when a guy will say, anyone you can say, hey, Jim, you knocked that Oklo, but that's the next Tesla. Really hard to refute the next
Tesla crushed some of the smartest people I've ever met in this
sure
business.
did.
It steamrolled people that I would say are probably geniuses.
Yeah, but there's one
Yeah.
Elon. It was Elon. That's it.
It's Elon, but look, the other day I had Scotty was my co-host, and Tesla was down 30, and I said, look, he was talking about car sales. Now, if you read the conference call, he has a pretty good conference call. There wasn't anything about cars. It was all about robots. It was all about self-drive. It's all about battery storage to be able to make it so that the terawatt that's produced in the country goes, and you don't need to build any new places, new power plants. And it was really fabulous. So I said to Scott, I'll take the other side of the trade. And he goes, why? I said, because he's changed the narrative. The narrative's not about
Right.
cars anymore. Cars are passé with him. He said, yeah, but this car.
He's talking about robot surgery on the conference call this week.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody even asked a question about cars.
No, it wasn't. And I heard this. Rick Smith, who's the son of the late Fred Smith, who was the greatest guy, started FedEx. He was saying, look, the big problem, this was when I was at Dreamforce last week, he said the big problem with the robots is the hand. Because, it can only it only knows a certain size box. And then it goes wrong, and it hits the box. It doesn't know what it's doing. And there it is a week later, Elon Musk says, you know what, I'm developing the hand. The
Right.
hand is the hardest thing, but we're going to work out the hand. And you realize He's solving the real world question of AI and robots. And we're all sitting here thinking about how are the sales in Germany? Give me a break.
Right. How many cars did you sell?
How many cars are sold in Germany?
Jim, I think we all understand the big differences between those companies in the late 90s and these companies. The amount of money these companies are able to produce, the moats. Our friend Kai Wu wrote a paper about the CapEx spending and the hyperscalers. These companies are doing, the Mag 7, 22% return on invested capital versus 6% for the S&P 493. So we all understand that these are not fly-by, they're not going anywhere. The difference is the size of these companies. NVIDIA and Apple are both $4 trillion. Maybe NVIDIA's on its way to 10, who knows? The size is a huge
Microsoft
difference.
right behind.
Okay, but
Alphabet
does that-
right
does that
behind.
part-
what Jensen would tell you is, so what? Maybe my company should be worth 10. He said, you can't, he urged me not to look at that. And he urged me not to look at it when it crossed $1 trillion.
Don't look at the market cap.
Yeah, he said, you can. It just doesn't help.
Well, how could you not look? Okay,
Well-
so I mean, I agree with you.
No, it's absolutely right. I mean, but this is what he's trying to say is don't limit what he's been saying is if you take a 20-year view, which is what he does, and you work backwards, it's entirely possible that he will develop things that no one's ever thought about, and it might be worth far more than you think.
better.
Remember, Elon uses 50 trillion.
But they better because
Well, they better, absolutely. He'll tell you they better, or else
You-
his company, he runs scared.
'Cause you
Jensen
know-
runs very scared.
what happened to Cisco and all of the other companies, they did it. All of those companies, they did 10x their sales from 1999 to 2010, but the stocks fell 85% because
sure did.
investors were way ahead of expectations. So whatever Jensen is saying to you, they better do all of that to justify these valuations.
Okay, so here's what Jensen would say if we were here. He'd say, you know what, we better do all of that or we're dead. See, he'd say just what you said, and that's why you'd like him. He's not going to come up with the, no, let me tell you this, that. He goes, no, you're dead right. I mean, if we don't beat Lisa Su and AMD and we don't stay one ahead, we're dead. Because he runs more scared than anybody I've seen. And it's really impressive that he runs scared because I think we'd all like that. Look, are these companies... Here's the way that Sarah Fryer, the CFO of OpenAI, and I really like her because she helped me when I thought that Square was going to go bust. She didn't do so well at the local thing, the newspaper stuff, but she was a good partner at Goldman. And she's saying, look, if we can take over every vertical, if we can take over the Facebook vertical, the Meta vertical, and if we can take over the Microsoft vertical, and we can take over what they're doing at NVIDIA, whatever, then we win. But we have to win in every vertical. So you listen to that and you're Zuckerberg and you say, listen, I got to spend like hell. I cannot have OpenAI come in. I have to own my vertical. And that's the fight out there. That's what people are saying is like, OpenAI is going to destroy us unless we up our game.
It's an existential spend.
100%.
They're all saying that. Same thing.
But the verticals are really great. Look at Zuckerberg. He's really good.
So let's do OpenAI while we're on the topic.
Sure.
This is the strangest thing about the modern market. OpenAI is like this character that exists off screen. It's not public. It's the most important character in the
By far.
movie.
By
All right.
far.
So we're all watching a movie, and the main character is Kaiser Sose.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Everything Kaiser Sose does behind the scenes that then becomes news, we don't see the resulting share price move because OpenAI doesn't trade. We can only see that interpreted through the share prices of all of the other characters in the movie. It's a phenomenally fascinating thing, and the main character has not yet appeared. Is this the first $1 trillion market cap IPO?
Oh, she told me don't. Sarah said, please don't use the trill. He said, don't go. She said, we don't think it's going to be north of 7.
I feel like this show is not in Sarah's heavy rotation, so you can.
But that's
you
I'm
can
just
go
saying
there.
that I wanted to use trill.
Okay.
I'll tell you. Let me tell you why
Well, it's
it's so hard.
500 billion. I'm not saying
But let me
anything
tell you
crazy.
why it's so hard. So I got Mark Casper on. He's a real smart guy. He runs Thermo Fisher. And I've had Mark for many, many years. I've known him for a long time. And I say to him, why aren't companies trying to really solve cancer with AI? And he goes, okay, the drug companies, they don't believe us. They don't think that we're important. There's only one guy who took our call, Sam. I said, Sam? He goes, Sam's the only guy who's interested. He knows that we working together can be able to figure out gene sequencing that's going to be able to take on ALS, going to take on Parkinson's, going to take on all the diseases that these drug companies are afraid they're going to lose billions. They're going to lose billions. And he is a great guy. And I said, well, I don't know. I don't know enough about him other than the fact he's really good at taking down money. He goes, no, Sam takes your call. And he goes, what are the hardest diseases to cure? I want to go after those. And he said, you should respect Sam for that because the drug companies only want to go after the easy ones. Because these other ones, ALS, costs too much money. And so there you got, again, Kaiser's, he's off on the sidelines, but he wants to solve that disease. And when you go and you talk to someone in cars, he's trying to figure out, but is there a car that could develop? One of the things that Jobs wanted to do before he died, a car that can run on water, because that would solve the internal combustion problem. That would be something that Sam wants to go after. So I don't know him personally. I met him when I shook his hand. His partner Greg has been on my show a couple of times, but he's trying to do big things.
Yeah, well,
and
clearly.
you gotta hand him. Gotta hand it to him. He's trying to be. But do I like the fact that they're borrowing money? Look, when Safra Katz is a really good business person. And when she told me that she was going to do...
CEO of Oracle.
When she told me she was going to do this, I said, why are you getting... You can't do that, Safra. You can't borrow that kind of money to be able to build what you're saying. She goes, we have no choice. We have to. Our business is growing 2-3%. This could be the greatest business ever. Larry loves it. Larry's the richest man in the world. Larry Ellison, his son's got the Paramount thing. And what's interesting is that she's serious. She's a serious person. I have Hock Tan on last week. Now, Hock Tan is at Broadcom, which is my $1 trillion company. He's ruthless, Hock. I happen to love Hock, but he's ruthless. And everyone knows. And I said, Hock, are you sure that this thing's going to work? And he goes, Jim, it is going to work.
What thing?
The
data centers?
The
OpenAI. Okay.
OpenAI.
Right.
Because OpenAI is borrowing far more money than it should. And I don't know. They have to win something. And Google's deathly afraid of OpenAI.
Jim, are you worried about the credit part of this? Because obviously that is the biggest part.
You have to be. Until OpenAI came along, I was thinking this is a really responsible group of people who are figuring out how to keep their turf and continuing to reinvent. Then OpenAI comes along and they have a dream. And they're back with the Microsoft, and they get Oracle to do the data centers, and next thing you know, it's gospel. And remember, the dream starts. I mean, I talk about Jensen. Like Jensen, remember, Jensen brought them the first platform.
It's hard to keep track.
And that's what ChatGPT was based on. Was what Jensen brought it over. And so Sam, like I fucking know Sam. He's everybody on everybody's lips, and yet he is not there.
He's not there.
Yeah, he's not.
He's not doing quarterly conference calls.
No,
he doesn't have to.
No, he doesn't.
You know what? If you're over a certain market cap, I feel like you need to do public market earnings calls.
Well, I guess look, they do it. It's a tough question because. But there are people who actually trade the stock all the time. The government doesn't seem to care. Like there's people who buy it and sell it. The government is going toward having two conference calls a year instead of 4. How that helps people, I don't know. As a regular investor, you want as much information as possible. But that's what this new justice.
What we've heard from people on that topic is that it'll actually increase transparency because a lot of times companies don't talk as a result of a quiet period surrounding earnings.
Well,
if earnings were only twice a year, then theoretically they might be able to speak more frequently, not less.
Okay, here's what I hear about it, which is that when they have news, they should say it. That should be the rule. News, they should say it. And I would like that because I think a lot of them feel like I can't give the news until the quarter.
Well, so this opens that up theoretically.
Right, and then some people get it and others don't. We just want it so that everybody gets it.
Jim, so the companies are huge. We've never seen this before. The valuations are not stupid. They're just not. These companies...
That's I f***ed up on the alphabet, okay? Because the goddamn Justice Department guy's in my face telling me, I pull away to my lawyer. He said, listen, we're going to destroy Google, okay? We're going to... You think Google's so powerful? Let me tell you something. We're going to split it up, and we're not going to let them have any money. You think it's going to be like Exxon when they had Standard Oil and everybody did well? We're going to wipe it out. So I went and sold it for the club, okay? And I listened to the guy, and they got this judge called a monopolist. Then the judge just immediately goes back on everything. Yeah. And I looked at it and I said, I sold Google at 16 times earnings. What an idiot. I mean, I'm an idiot. 16 times earnings. I sold it through American Electric Power's multiple. What an idiot.
So you are the face of the American investor. Would there be a point in time at which...
Should I get eyes looked at?
I think you look fab. I think you look fantastic. What do you guys think?
Let's go. Let's hear it for Jimmy. Jim, is there a point out there on the horizon to which you would say, time out, this is silly season, forget about Aklo and the Iran, like that's a distraction.
Right.
But where the integrity of the capital market system is it's where, all right, time out, everybody, no more new money. What would have to happen for you to get there?
Okay, well, look, in the third week of March of 2000, I very publicly wrote a piece in Real Money and in the Street which says I'm getting out. It's too silly. It's too stupid. I'm going to go into bonds. I've never bought bonds other than for trade, for treasuries. And I'm going to go short most of the NASDAQ. And I did it. And everyone just thought it was a stunt. But I did. I just, when I had a good year, I sold everything. And I wrote from the short side mostly for the rest of the year because it was phony. And I had seen it to be too phony.
But wait, but it had been phony for years. So
okay, that's a really good point. I waited until it was phony, but I wanted to make money. And a very nice woman.
Well, no, I remember very distinctly when MicroStrategy blew up the first time,
Right.
and it was an accounting fraud, and you said, this is now going to be open season on every stock trading at 500 times eyeballs.
Right.
No one's going to believe any of these guys
Well,
again.
bullshit.
I
Yeah.
read I
it's
read what you
true.
wrote,
But
and it
see,
ended up being that way.
But I got lucky because I had the Street, so I knew how phony it was. And I saw the Street's numbers go down really big. And I was very public about it. I said, listen, the numbers are bad. All the IPOs are phony. Everyone's trying to do a secondary. Everyone's trying to get out. Count me out. There isn't a soul I know that doesn't want to sell. They're begging at Morgan Stanley to put together a project so they could get out of their stock in a synthetic way. Now, if I felt that all these companies, let's say I felt that there were 5 open AIs, that there were 5 different companies that could pull this off. That would be hard for me because I struggle with open. I mean, literally, I pull up with these people when I was at this, and it's one of the reasons why I was so glad to go to Dreamforce. All I asked everybody the same thing was, am I nuts? OpenAI seems crazy. Am I nuts? And I didn't meet anyone who felt that OpenAI was a joke. I just met people who said it can work because Larry Ellison's serious and Sam's serious. And I said, but what happens if they come up with a source of power that makes it so all this spend on power is not needed? What happens if it turns out that D-Wave quantum is faster and everything they're doing, there's all the fast compute at NVIDIA is not fast enough? And remember when Jensen said, look, I didn't believe in quantum, and then he came back and he said, well, look, quantum's very close. And these guys all say the same thing. Well, look, we'll be ready when that happens, and they won't be when it happens. So I think you have to, look, I hope to live long enough to see that it makes it. But I know that, but I've got to tell you that if I told you that I'm not worried about it, after my wife, I come back and tell my wife, I said, look, I got to tell you something's I'm afraid of screwing up here on this open AI. And I describe it, and she says, what does Mark say? Benioff, she says, hey, Mark's okay with it. She says, well, what does Jensen say? She said, Jensen's okay with it. She said, well, everybody's okay with it. So maybe you have to make your peace with it until you can figure out something.
But there are a bunch. I mean, there's what Elon's doing. There's Anthropic. Like it's not just them.
Well, I actually want to ask you about that. So
I believe in Elon, but I mean, I really do. I think he's very surreal. It's very real.
So you and I invested through the first .com wave. We're left with 0 of those companies, with the exception of Amazon. But none of the search players. So to me, the LLMs remind me of search, and there are none left. Google came public in 2004 after. There were 10 of them at one point.
Right.
That's the LLM thing. It doesn't feel like there were going to be 10. It feels like there are going to be 2. I don't know for sure.
Right,
It's
right.
ChatGPT probably,
Well,
and Perplexity, or
maybe not
ChatGPT
Perplexity.
and Claude.
Well, you got to look at this lawsuit between the New York Times and OpenAI, because the New York Times isn't. OpenAI is constantly cribbing the Times, but they have 2 million instances of plagiarism. 2 million instances in the lawsuit.
2 million.
So I met with the lawyers in this thing, and I said, wait a second, are you telling me that they won't pay you because you're going to win this lawsuit, and then everybody who runs these sites is going to have to pay every single site?
That might cost more than energy.
Well, the fact is that they get a free ride, and
Yeah.
they're not going to get a free ride, and a lot of these sites won't be able to afford it. And that lawsuit, which I think the Times wins, is going to make it so all these companies have to train
Well, Reddit sued Perplexity on the same grounds.
exactly.
They said, you're training your LLM on our proprietary
Totally
data,
true.
and you owe us money. And Perplexity said, hey, you're fighting against the open internet. And Reddit's probably like, yeah, go yourself.
Yeah.
That's our data. Pay us. It's not open
and they
internet.
used Cloudflare, Matthew Prince. That stock went from 70 to 200 because Perplexity used them, and now everyone's going to have to fall in line.
These
Everyone's got to
LLMs
pay.
can't survive
Absolutely right.
A scenario where they have to actually pay for
No,
all
they
the
can't.
data they're being trained
and
on.
that's what's like 2000.
So that's what makes me nervous.
That's what's like 2000.
All right, the second part, you wrote, I've stolen this idea from you. I've given you credit, but you wrote in a moment like this, you wrote about being at the diner by the Holland Tunnel, where the guy drops the eggs on the griddle, and it's just too hot. If you're not ready with the spatula, the minute you drop it,
Why
the
are
eggs
your
gonna
eggs
burn.
so perfect? He goes 9 seconds.
9
If
seconds.
I leave them on for 10 seconds, they're burnt till crisp.
Is this
I take them
market?
at 9.
Is this market not a hot griddle Holland Tunnel diner market
No,
environment?
I don't think so. I think
not.
there's sections that are.
Okay.
At that point, everything was. I think there's lots of stuff.
Okay.
I mean, okay. Now I know Procter and Gamble's not what this room might be about, or maybe I don't know. But Procter opens up Ford today, and it's John Mueller. He's like the most boring man on earth, but he's a nice guy. He's a CFO. He
He
comes
sells
out. He's a
toilet
CEO.
paper.
Excuse me.
He sells toilet paper. It's gotta be
Well,
boring.
hey, does that? He got that wavy toilet paper, first innovation in 40 years, you know. But they told a good story, and the stock's up 5. And I'm like thinking, shit, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for me. It's not going to fit my thesis. My thesis is that group is safety last. That's my big rap, you know. And then by the time the market opens, the stock's only up $1, you know. And so that's working for me because that every day you seek validation of your thesis, okay. So I mean, it's not like I am saying to him, no, let me tell you, it's fine. Every minute you're seeking, if you're any good at this business, and everybody wants to be good at picking stocks, you have to constantly validate your thesis. And if you see something that says that your thesis is wrong and you ignore it, you're a jackass. So, I mean, if Procter been up big today, literally, I'm thinking this. I'm watching the guy at 7:04, and they're talking, of course, about the Reds, the Cincinnati Reds, and the Bengals. I don't know, because the Cincinnati thing. And I'm listening, I'm saying, shit, this stock's going up too much. This is wrong. This is not my thesis. This is not my thesis. What am I going to say? When Carl talks to me, what am I going to say? Like the Procter, it's got to come down. It's got to come down. It doesn't work. And it goes down. And I go on 8:59. I'm like, hey, Procter, that was a little bit, that's nothing. You don't want to be in that. So, I mean, you can never make it seem like if you are secure in this business, you're just such a joker. I mean, you have got to be. Like, I watch you on TV, and it's such a look. And I'm friends with everybody. And Stephanie worked with me for years. But you know, Josh will come out and will say, "Look, toast was toast. I didn't know." You know, and I'm like thinking, there's another guy that's made a mistake in this business besides me. Yeah. I know 2 people, him and me. And the ones who don't say it, they're like, "Are you kidding?"
There was a guy, part of the original cast of Fast Money. We won't say his name, but if the stocks he picked on Monday didn't do well on Tuesday, he would call in sick to the show. I can't be on.
Say his name. Say it.
I won't do it.
See that shit, and it
Jim,
bothers me so
Jim,
much.
do you think the audience? I mean, I'm curious to hear your take on stocks. Do you think that the software stocks are a value or a trap?
The software as a
Let's talk
service
about.
Are people too worried about AI disintermediating
Okay.
Adobe
So Salesforce, I
and
know-
Salesforce?
All right, so
Salesforce.
I'm gonna give a micro answer and a macro answer. The macro is the ServiceNow report this week, and I think it'll be a really good quarter. And people say, shit, I should have done that when that's got AI. But there's a company called Encino. You know, Encino, not the town, but Encino, NCI. It's a spin-off of a bank called Live Oak. And Live Oak is an actual non-deposit bank. It's an internet bank, but it's based in Wilmington, North Carolina. So, you know, we like, what do they know down there? You know, but hey, this guy is a real smart guy who runs it. And what he did was develop software that made it so that you could do software as a service for a bank. And he did it in conjunction with Salesforce. And that company's now worth $3.2 billion, and his bank is worth $1.5 billion. He just ripped out the Encino Salesforce product. And I said, how did you, this is in front of the Federal Reserve, it was a panel I ran. He said, I had some kid write the stuff that was better than what Salesforce has got.
Using AI.
Yeah. So I think that it is going to be existential.
Adobe, similar story.
Adobe's really
What
in
if
trouble.
anybody can make any graphic they want just by speaking it
It's
into
really
existence?
In trouble. My daughter went to Parsons, and she was in Adobe. That they train on Adobe, and she said, Dad, there's this, I bought her this for a present for graduation. I bought her the $600 suite for Adobe. And she stopped it. I said, why? She goes, I got this Canva for free.
Yeah.
I said, you tell me the free product's better than Adobe? She goes, I'm telling you they're equal.
Yeah.
And that's his stock peaked when Canva came out with free. So these guys are all going to be really challenged. And now Marcus, I work with Marcus Benioff's new product in Salesforce, and I see what it's doing.
Agent Force?
Yeah, Agent Force.
Okay.
But the problem with Agent Force is, one, it can be impersonated, so you have to do a lot of cybersecurity. But two, I mean, do you really want to give, like when you call Walgreens, well, I guess they're almost gone, when you call CVS, and you have like dial 1 for this, dial 2
Right.
for that. You don't want if they're able to get your information. Like United Health was a real bad hack, and I got hit by the hack because I had back surgery 5 years ago, and like every 5 days someone calls me and says, "Yo, this is how's your back surgery? I understand because I'm from the National Back Guys, and we are checking up on your medical." And I said, "Oh my God, it's United Health. It never stops. They got they know everything about me, and it was a Chinese hack." And I don't want I hope Agent Force is never hacked because they know too much.
Right. If you set something loose inside of your email, for example, then all of a sudden it's got every detail it needs
Everything.
for somebody to steal and impersonate. And
That's why I like CrowdStrike and Nikesh Palo Alto so much, because they're the two that are most soup to nuts.
so you and I
do
are
worry
both
about it.
you and I are both CrowdStrike bulls.
Yeah.
George was on yesterday with Wapner in the morning.
Yeah, he came on my show the day before.
Yeah.
I said, George, you're overexposed, man.
Is cybersecurity the most obvious secular bull market between now and the end of the decade, other than AI
No,
and
it's
robotics?
number one. That's why I own two of them for the trust. I would never do
Which
that.
you own,
I
Crowd
own
and
Cyber and Palo Alto.
Palo
I'll tell you
Alto.
why Scott had him on. It's kind of interesting. When he was getting up, and we had him on pretty early on in the hour, because it was me and Scott, because David was off and Carl was off. And I said to Scott, Scott's a good sports fan like I am. I said, George won Le Mans. And he goes, yeah, that's right. I said, no, he won Le Mans. And
not as a sponsor. He drives the F1 car.
Yeah, and he finished second in Sebring last year. And Scott was like, give me a break. I said, George, tell him. He goes, yeah, I won Le Mans. And George has a sleeping problem. Now, you can only go 8 hours. You're not allowed to go all 24 with one guy. But he can't sleep, so he's like watching all 24 hours, and he's great. And Scott was like, you gotta be kidding me.
Yeah.
But George is, he's the sponsor, but he's also the chief driver. I love him.
Who's your favorite CEO? Not because of what the stock
Right.
performance was, but you've interviewed every important CEO probably over the last 20 years that's ever been. Who's your favorite?
Was it Jack Welch?
I have a
No,
very oddball
no,
pick
not Jack.
a very odd guess that I want to make. I think you genuinely liked Aubrey McClendon from Chesapeake.
Okay, I mentioned Aubrey last week.
Oh, you
To
did?
someone,
Okay.
because
I think you liked the guy,
I loved Aubrey.
and it was a tragic
loved
end,
Aubrey.
but
Yeah, and Aubrey violated the Sherman Act. Now, if you take a look, when you look at this Article 2 of the Sherman Act,
wait, he burned down Atlanta? How do you violate the Sherman Act?
he bid rigged.
Okay.
There was a nice piece of land that he knew had a lot of nat gas on it, and he wanted to be sure he got it. So he went to everybody who was bidding and said, "Listen, this is mine. I'll give you some." I wanted it, and it was all recorded. Someone recorded it, and he.
Was this Chauncey Billups?
No.
No,
Aubrey McClendon, Chesapeake Energy.
It's
This Chesapeake
CHK.
Energy was the
It
NVIDIA of the 2000s.
Yes, it was.
Stop.
And,
No, it wasn't.
and
Yes,
I,
it was.
Aubrey was larger than life, and he owned the Thunder, and he was
Yeah.
a big giver to Duke. He was actually more of a finance guy than he was an oil guy, but he explained a lot in life to me, and I went to a bunch of schools with him, and I really just enjoyed it. Just really enjoyed him. And he, when I went to he said, "Listen, Jimmy, I'm in trouble." And I say, let me check on this. Let me check on this. So I called my guy, Paul Weiss, who does the antitrust. And my friend said, he's done. He's done. It's 10 years. He's done. And I said, well, I got to call him back. And he said,
What's that
what do I
call
tell him? What do I tell him? He goes, it's 10 years. And I left a message, and it was, that's when he killed himself. He killed himself about an hour after, and he didn't get my message, but he was a tragic figure whom I loved. And
He got the message.
I'll tell you, we went to Ohio together.
I wasn't going to say that.
We went to Ohio together.
Jim, I think you did it.
Huh?
It was your fault.
But yeah, it was my fault. I did it. We went to Ohio together.
What are the
Was
CSs I
Heather
talking
there? Was
to?
Heather in the Ohio trip? Exactly, my producer. Yeah. Well, so he goes, Jimmy, listen to me. We got, and then it was the day. I look, my mom and dad call me Jimmy, so I like it. He goes, Jimmy, we're going to go to Utica because there's the largest oil patch in the world, bigger than the Permian. And what we're going to do,
Utica, New York.
Yeah, we're going to do Utica, Ohio.
Utica,
we're
Ohio.
going to go, and you're going to be there the moment we're going to spud. We're going to spud, and it's going to be amazing. So he said, but you got to put all this stuff on. You got to be ready. And he goes, all right, hit it. And nothing comes up. And he goes, no, hit it. And it's nothing. And the guy comes over to me, because I'm with him. He goes, hey, boss, listen, it's natural gas. I said, no, it's oil. It's natural gas. He goes, no, there's oil in there. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, there will be blood. I mean, could the guy, but, he lost everything on the Utica. He lost everything on the Utica.
That was a true gambler, for sure.
Oh, was he ever a gambler?
Yeah.
Oh,
Jim,
I
this is
loved him.
your 8th book. Why are you doing this to yourself? What are we trying to do here? Who is this book
This
for?
one I f***ed up on. I really did. No, I mean, because I worked really, really hard on it. And I really kind of did a lot of damage. I'm a gardener. And I know this sounds stupid, but you only get so many gardens in life. This is my 38th. And I let this one go fallow because I had to read the book into the microphone, as Josh knows. And what happened is that it can only be your voice, and the only time my voice would not be able to hold up after the show, so I had to work on the weekends. And it took me 2 years to write. I was really out of commission. I wrote 500 pages, and then they said, "Listen, pick your best 250." Basically, they wanted it to be 250. So then, I had this great section about how that if you're going to go do a GameStop, let it be a Palantir or a Celsius. So they cut out the Celsius and they kept the Palantir. And the Palantir makes it seem like that carp, messianic guy. But what I was trying to say was look, at least have some companies that have numbers. Have it to have real growth.
Oh, so if you want to have this group movement where everyone buys the same stock, the underlying should not necessarily be a video game retailer.
Exactly.
Don't buy bullshit.
Yeah, and then I also said, let me tell you, a good balance sheet first. But I said, I remember telling my wife, I'm going to take on the balance sheet. So you have to, because if you're going to say people should pick stocks, you have to at least show them a balance sheet. So I had this big, 40-page section about AMC's balance sheet and income statement versus Apple's. Apple's is perfect and AMC's was the worst. And they said, okay, Jim, we only have room for one. I said, what do you mean one? No, it's a contrast. He said, no, we only have room. We're going to use Apple. I said, no, but Apple's boring. It's a companion. And they said, well, we're not going to do AMC because that's bad. And I said, but the whole point is to be able to show people what a bad balance sheet is. And they said, well, Jim, we got to worry about people getting through it. Yeah. So the exigencies of having to write a mass book that I wanted to be read contrasted versus trying to be a serious practitioner of the game. So you have to make I made so many compromises, it drove me crazy.
But the good stuff, most of the good stuff made it in.
Yeah, and that's what they said.
We're trying to sell the book,
No,
right?
no, I don't get me wrong.
Yeah, what a piece of shit this book was. Oh, my God.
Thank you for that. I just give you the behind-the-scenes stuff. In the end, I actually like it.
I like the book. I like the book that you wrote.
Hey, did you like the thing with my dad and Mr. Paul? It was actually called Mr. Hank, but
these are the stories that help people better understand the investor, the mentality behind the investments, and
No, this is why people need to read the book. We are bombarded. I've been talking a lot about this. We are bombarded with why this is going to end badly, and maybe it does. Fine. But what you are trying to do with the book is to tell to people, stiff arm the headlines, and focus on the opportunities. Right. And it's not easy, but you can do it.
Right. And I keep saying, look, I was in 1982, Dow was at 1,000, walking down the street, and I'm going to Goldman Sachs at 55 Broad, and everyone's telling me it's a terrible time, interest rates are real high, and the company's not come back, and Reagan's a doofus, and all this stuff. And even then, it was a great time to buy. And I think that, yes, it is absolutely true. I was in the book, I had to wrestle with 2007, 2009. You were back even again, not till 2013. So that was a big, long stretch. But the idea is that if you believe, if you observe and you have some curiosity and you use the chat GPT and you do the current homework, you might have 3 or 4 stocks in your life that are really great. And I know I use the NVIDIA, and you can say, well, Jim, I had an unfair advantage. But the fact is that Jensen asked me to come out because no one would listen to him. That's how I came out. He said, look, I'm going to show you things. No one's listening to me. There was a moment with Jensen where he said, do you think you'd get me in front of like a Wendy's or McDonald's? Because this thing understands 28 languages. And I called McDonald's. I called Wendy's. They said, no, that doesn't work for us. Of course, now McDonald's is trying it. But what is amazing is it doesn't take a lot of great ideas to make $1 million. You just need like 3 or 4. But if they talk you out of it, then you'll never, ever make anything in your life. And Larry Fink, whom I really respect, he worked on me very hard. He said, look, you got to get people to invest. These younger people don't believe in anything. And I said, well, look, I'll match index funds, which are very valid, let them be able to see Facebook. I mean, I found Facebook because my daughter was a suicide counselor. And she said, I can't get the kids to get off this thing.
Yeah.
This thing is like Coke. You gotta see if you can't get this guy Zuckerberg to stop doing this, because all of the people who are trying to commit suicide, it's because their friends are telling them that they're ugly. And it's like, on the one hand, I'm like thinking, well, that's terrible. On the other hand, I'm thinking, shit, Coke. This is Coke, legal Coke.
All right, Jimmy, we got 5 minutes.
No, we don't. That's bullshit. Where are we going? What are we gonna do? Yeah, we gotta go watch some. It's the Knicks. So you put them on. There's no football right now, right? It's not yet.
So Michael had this adorable idea where we do.
What an asshole.
No, I don't mean it facetiously.
I mean, people have a lot to do.
Michael had this.
I'm having more fun than I've had on this damn book tour.
We're absolutely having a blast. Michael had this really adorable idea where it would be very fitting, very on brand to end with a little mini lightning round. What I don't want to do is like just throw the mic out there and have people tell you how much they love you, and because that could eat up too much time. So I thought we would throw some tickers / themes / whatever at you, and you can keep these as brief or as long as you want. It's totally up to you.
I'll start. So there's this misconception.
How about Michael starts?
Shut up. It's my turn now. I have the mic. That every stock is going up. It's a bubble. It's just not true. There are a lot. There's 170 stocks in the S&P that are down 20%.
Absolutely.
There is a lot of opportunity. So a couple of weeks ago, Josh and I did value or value traps. So let's start here. Lululemon.
Can I give you a little? Okay. I love Calvin McDonald, but he has to he has to understand that when I go to Costco and they got the exact same thing for $17, he's got to reprogram.
Is that the problem there?
Yes.
Okay.
And
not aloe, but the low end.
The low end. And look, Richard Glantz, he's a good friend of mine. He was the CFO at Costco 38 years ago, and he told me that Lululemon, when they sued them because their stuff was exactly the same, that was the end of Lululemon. The stock was about 350. So I think management hasn't been able to reinvent. How did they keep him? I mean, think about that. How did they keep him?
Josh, what else?
I would love to get your take. Amazon is flat on the year.
Isn't that something?
What the hell is going on there?
Amazon Web Services, and they better do they got to show you 22% growth this week.
What's keeping that stock from participating with the rest of the NASDAQ?
The last 5 years, what a magnificent underperformer.
Right, it is amazing, and I don't want to blame Jassy. I think that what's happened is that Amazon Web Services was doing really great, and then Google Cloud, Thomas Kurian came in, and obviously Azure, and Nadella he's a very tough guy. But I think the main thing is I take the cue from my son who does software. Okay, he does venture capital software, and he says, "Look, I would never write on Amazon Web Services because it's retail product. You write on OpenAI, you write on Azure, you write on OpenAI, you write on Google."
Like developing software.
Yeah, and that when you hear like the cutting edge people don't want to write on it, what that really means is that that's the beginning of the end. It means that it's just a product that's meant for retailers. And then, they have the outage this weekend. The stock should not have gone up. The outage was terrible. But I do believe that they are in a scrum against Walmart and Costco on retail. This Amazon Web Services is losing customers.
Behind an AI.
Yeah, they're behind on AI. And when I had this discussion with Andy Jassy, I said, look, Andy, you don't want to pay Jensen's price. And I get that. And you're doing your Trainium and you got your really interesting chips. But the fact is that no one wants to write on you because they can go to OpenAI and they can write on NVIDIA.
Does Bezos pull a Bob Iger?
I'm sorry?
Does Bezos pull a Bob Iger?
Oh, Jesus
Or a
Christ,
Howard
would he
Schultz
really
or
come back?
anyone else who's had to come
Would he
back to.
I mean, he respects Jassy, and that guy Doug, who does retail, is really fabulous. I just think that if you're going to, that he's decided to be cheap. He's cheap. He won't pay Jensen. And the fact is that Musk, if you go over Musk's conference call, there's this moment in the call where he goes, and you know what? NVIDIA is the best, and I have to use NVIDIA. Now think about that. There isn't anything that he's ever said that he isn't the best. He's always the best. And he goes, you know what? NVIDIA is the best. And I was like, yes, I knew that. And Jassy should read that. And he should recognize that this whole Trainium bullshit, no one wants to use this
Did
stuff
you
because it's not
notice that
fast
they're
enough.
not in that carousel of companies that are announcing OpenAI partnerships? They're like not in the, it's like it seems like there's a cool club that Oracle is in and Sam Altman is in and Amazon is like not in any of
Well,
these
how about that
announcements.
Anthropic? They have more money in Anthropic, and yet
Right.
Anthropic went to Google.
All right, a few other ones. We spoke about.
But I'm on this one, by the way. I'm like spending.
You're
Wait, I got
No,
one more before I
I'm
forget
spending
it.
a lot of
I got
time
one
with
more before I
Amazon to
forget
see
it.
if it can't be great because I love Amazon, the company. I'm not giving up on Amazon. I'm not. You
Palantir,
should.
are you as impressed with Alex
Palantir.
Karp as he is with himself?
All right, so
I find him to be really interesting. I'm not long the stock. I'm curious
one
what
of
you
that new
think.
book's gonna come out. Axios has some stuff about it. I don't like him. I
Isn't
don't-
he a Philly? He's a Philly guy too.
Yeah. Oh, I told him that. I said, listen, like you're like a more repulsive Philly guy than I am. I gave him a note once. I said, I'm not your enemy, and he goes, yeah. I said, no, that's a peace offering. Yeah. It was like horrible. He's like a horrible guy, but I
right,
think he's real. I think that, and I say that because like all the companies that have hired him, the big ones, I've called them and I said, how is it? And they all, not to a person, say, listen, it's pretty good.
I mean, he's on fire. That business is on fire.
It's on fire.
But is it too expensive, even given how on fire they are? It seems crazy to me.
It is rule of 80. I think I'm going to end up. It's going to go
They're
to.
killing Rule of 80.
They're killing it.
Yeah.
And look, Boeing just went with them, and Ortberg, who's a very serious guy. When I say this serious guys, it's like the scene in Succession. Went right, yeah, right. Brian
We're not
Cox
serious
goes,
people.
You
not serious people.
are not serious people. Well, it's like a great line because I'm talking about people who are serious. Like Ortberg would not be going to him. I know a kid who went there from Wharton, and I know his mom. And his mom was saying, they work 24/7. They're all Karp to them is a hero because he's really not imperious at all to them. And that's what makes me like him. Now, I sent that guy, Shyam, the number 2 guy. He had a really good piece about the military last week. I sent him an email, and I knew he wasn't going to return, but I just said, look, I know you guys despise me, whatever. But then I meet this woman, Wendy, who's in charge of defense. She's head of defense. Imagine that. She's a Department of Defense at Palantir, which is like a real legitimate Palantir. And she says, she came up to me, and Heather was there. She goes, hey, Alex likes you. I said, what? She goes, Alex likes you.
Okay.
I said, yeah, sure. She said, no, you think she's a good guy. I said, if he thinks something, I said, if he thinks he's a good guy, what does he think about the guys that he really dislikes?
Jimmy, a few other iconic American brands. Take any one you want. Chipotle, Nike, Starbucks,
Starbucks.
Right,
Airbnb.
Chipotle, that guy. I mean, I love Scott. He's not pulling it off. I mean, I check all these different Chipotles. My last one I went to on Sunday night, dirty, ridiculous, used to be nice. I think Elliott Hill is going to turn Nike. It's going to be 2 quarters because there's too much inventory. I spent a lot. I went to a Dallas Eagles game with him. I really wanted to find out if the guy's real. I think the guy is very, very real. But New Balance is the one he's worried about because they're better performance. He's not worried about Hoka. But obviously, everybody else isn't either after today's number. But I think he's going to be able to pull it off. I really do.
Nike
That's a
check.
nice.
Oh,
No,
Hoka is Deckers.
that's Deckers, yeah. I don't, and that was a bad. The numbers were mid-single.
Chipotle, no?
Chipotle, no.
Airbnb?
Jeff changed management. Which
Airbnb?
one? ABME?
Airbnb. That's a tequila talking. I'm sorry, I slurred.
No. Chesky's an interesting figure because I like him, but he has to bring in someone else to have a bigger vision than he does. Because he's like, you got like Dara has a big vision, and he has to bring a guy like Tony Hsu from DoorDash, really big vision. His vision isn't big enough. Now, when I've mentioned that to him, he's like, I don't have the vision either. So when you say something like that to a guy who's insecure, they say, well, what's your vision? But you say it to a secure guy says, yeah, I got to get somebody else in. I think Brian Nichols is going to turn Starbucks big because he was about execution. It was about execution at
That stock
Chipotle.
has been $85 for 6 years.
I think it's going to be.
This is the year? I want to buy it.
No, it's going to be. Look, this quarter's still going to be tough, and I know that people are going to get discouraged, go back down to 79. But
You know what the
I
problem,
think
you know what the
Brian's
problem is?
China.
You know what the problem is?
China's got it's worth 10 billion, north of 10 bill now. Before it was south of 10 bill. I know it's splitting hairs, but it's not bad.
I want to
the
pull the
problem,
I
Josh?
want to pull the trigger on these names. Every name Michael just mentioned: Chipotle, Nike,
No, don't say
Starbucks.
Chipotle because they got to realize they don't think anything's
But
wrong.
they're all 35 to 40 times earnings.
they're
None of them.
expensive.
No,
They need an earnings
we're in a
breakout.
market where even the worst performers, the stocks don't get cheap enough.
No, they have to have an earnings breakout, and I do think that you have to believe in Brian, who I do, and it's tough to just believe in a guy and also have to deal with the fact that everybody else must, or else you wouldn't have that high PE. But Elliott is Donahoe wrecked that did really did major damage to that company, and two CEOs did major damage to Starbucks. That's a long. You're talking about 5-6 years of just terrible damage. Most brands cannot handle 5-6 years of damage. They just can't. And so those two, you're betting that the brand's strong enough to have dealt with how horrendous the CEOs were. When I say horrendous, like everyone in
you
this
killed
room
the
would
guy
have
at
been better than
Starbucks.
anything.
You killed that last CEO of Starbucks.
Yeah, that was bad.
That was rough.
Well, I had a
He
decision
cried.
tree for that piece. I had a decision tree. I had gotten the number. I pulled every stop out to get the numbers for Tim Hortons, which were not gettable, and get the numbers for Duncan, which were not gettable. But I did. I really worked hard knowing about that interview, so I had them. So I said, if he is humble, go with I understand. It's fine. If he's not humble, just give him everything.
I think you got him fired.
No,
I really do.
No, I know.
All right, last one. What is? And this is not a recommendation to the audience. What is your favorite stock right now?
Give us a 10-bagger
Oh
now.
my God, no! I have two. I have two stocks that I love right now.
Guys, will we take two?
I have two stocks.
Take two? All right, we'll take two.
All right, first of all,
We're not like your publisher.
no.
We'll take two.
First of all, I actually love the stock of Boeing.
Really?
Yeah, I do
Okay.
because they've solved the construction problems.
Okay.
And the demand is incredible.
They have their act together
They
now.
got their act together, and Kelly's real serious. And they actually won. The fact that they won that fighter plane told you that the government's not going to give them a hard time.
Where
And then
does that stock trade today?
It's at 219. I think you can
Down
go
from
to,
6?
I think you can go to
Down from 600?
yeah. I think you can go to 300 pretty quickly.
Okay.
Once they get the cash flow, and the cash flow is really.
They're in the good
valuable.
graces of the White House again.
They're in great. Yeah, see, that really mattered.
Airplane demand around the world is as strong as it's
just
ever
strong,
been.
right? And if Airbus could meet the demand, then it wouldn't be so good. But they also have the wide body, and they don't have the non-union wide body is doing very well. But the other one is one that people are not thinking about, and they got to think about, which is Capital One.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
Capital One.
I like the chart, COF.
Oh my God, how
Yeah.
about that chart? It is. They bought this company called Discover, and Discover has a network like MasterCard and Visa.
Discover is a credit card company for people who have no money.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly
great. It's
right.
brilliant.
And if you look at their numbers from this last quarter, they had a huge decline in defaults. Because this guy, Richard Fairbank, I met Richard Fairbank. I was saying in 2007 that Capital One was going to go under. And I get this phone call. I don't know how he got my phone number. I said, listen, I'm here. I'm like at my proctologist, man. I got like a problem. I'm trying to figure it out. He goes, do you have 10 minutes? Like half an hour later, the proctologist said, yeah, are you coming in here? He's a guy up at Columbia Presbyterian. I said, no, I'm talking to this guy from Capital One. He said, well, what does that mean? And I got off the phone. I said, this guy's the smartest guy I have ever seen. And he won't come on the show. He's a very humble guy, but this Capital One is a rocket ship.
Buffett's a
And it was
big shareholder.
Which one?
Berkshire is a big shareholder of Capital One.
I didn't know that he's in that.
Yeah.
Are
Is
they?
he?
Yeah. Yes.
I always, ever since that I don't think he's picking them, so I haven't been checking what he's in. But the conference call was just magnificent. It was a magnificent conference call.
And that's
you
better than
gotta
the American consumer. So what a great way to end.
Well, I mean, look, Capital One is the way they're going upscale and downscale. And I urge people not to buy it, but to do everything you can to learn this stuff.
Do your research.
Because this one is a monster.
Jim, I want to close by just reiterating how appreciative Michael and I are for decades of your commentary and educating all of us. I know the audience feels the same way. You're an icon. You're a legend.
This
This
is so much
conversation
fun
lived
for
up
me.
to it, and we love you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Round of
Thank
applause,
you.
Jim Cramer.
Oh!
All right, guys, I want to let everybody know we're gonna run off the stage so we can get in place. We're gonna do we'll sign some books, we'll take some pictures, and we'll try to get to everybody. So let us make our egress. Nicole's gonna walk us. Are you walking us off, or what are we doing? Music? All right. We want to meet everybody. We'll be out there if you're interested. Thank you guys so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank
Thanks
you.
to Jim.